the great thing about our direct access product is if your product is valued under 40 Canadian, which is roughly around $29 USD, it could still go on that network and it wouldn't get hit for any duties and taxes, any GST or PST.
This is Outside the Box with Ascendia USA, a podcast educating US-based brands, marketplaces, and e-tailers on international shipping topics and how they can expand their global e-commerce footprint.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Outside the Box with Ascendia USA podcast, here for a special Canada edition episode with my co-host Jason Rowland.
Hey everybody, welcome back.
And we have a very special guest today, Mike Lorentzen, Senior Director of Enterprise Sales for Ascendia. Mike, you want to say hi?
Hey everyone.
So we're here today to talk. It's not going to be a very long episode, but hopefully it's going to be a very effective episode in terms of just equipping you guys with some information as to what's been going on in Canada, specifically surrounding the Canada Post strike, CUPW activity. But just to talk a little bit about the impact in the market, timeline of the year, right? We're in Q4. We're gearing up for a busy fourth quarter and peak holiday shipping season, what that impact may look like in terms of delays, backlogs, et cetera. And then also talk about what we're doing to help clients and how we're helping clients by utilizing our own Canadian delivery network, our ePAC Select Canada Direct Access Network. So, Mike, would you mind sharing just a little bit of background about yourself and what you've been doing and everything else?
Yeah, so I'm on one of our enterprise teams here at Ascendia. So working with some of, the Fortune 500, Fortune 1000 companies across, a vast amount of different retailers and whatnot, working with, clients to help mitigate issues in Canada and generally rest of the world too as well. But Canada is such a big focus for the U.S. market, and it's our number one, destination when it comes to e-commerce. So, looking to help out customers, see if we can help kind of alleviate some of their pressures instead of using Canadian Post and kind of give them more options.
We're going to focus today on Canada, obviously, how we can try and get ahead of some potential customer experience issues going into the next couple months. So on Thursday, September 25th, Ottawa announced sweeping changes to the Crown Corp's operations to address its deeply troubled financial situation. So as far as I understand, they're being primarily subsidized by the taxpayers and have had to kind of dig into that even further than they really wanted to be able to stay afloat and stay operational. Those changes include ending daily mail delivery, closing some rural post offices, and moving almost all Canadian households to community mailboxes. Now, this was a Canada Post announced this sweeping change immediately, almost immediately, due to the announcement that Canadian Union of Postal Workers, CUPW, as we'll refer to throughout this call, initiated a full work stoppage effective the next day, which was Friday, September 26, 2025. And then on October 10th, the CUPW announced workers would shift from a full strike. So they've been in a full work stoppage since Friday, September 26th, meaning no mail, no parcels are moving outside of, I believe, benefit or Social Security, what we would call here in the United States Social Security, but checks for those qualified people. I believe those are still being delivered. But even mail or parcels being processed, whether that's border clearance, intra-Canada, et cetera. So again, if we go back to November and December of Q4 of 2024, we're in a similar situation. I think the positive is that it is October 13th, as opposed to being, this taking place on, let's say, like a November 20th, right? Because then you're going to be hitting into those significant Black Friday, Cyber Monday volumes and everything else related to holiday surges. And then according to the most recent news updates, there is still a very significant gap between the Canada Post and the CUPW in terms of where they could possibly meet in the middle or come to a mutually agreeable, contract or situation. I'd love to get your guys' thoughts, what you're seeing in the market, Jason, from your perspective, from risk, compliance, et cetera. And then Mike, more on the sales front.
Yeah, I think overall, Ascendia has had to enact kind of a muscle memory thing here, right? Because earlier in the year, we had, or late last year, we had the original, Canada strike. So basically, at this point, when we got notification of the second strike coming, we took the steps to kind of prepare for exactly what we knew was going to happen and what we could do to avoid our customers having issues with the strike, and got all that stuff in place so that on the day that everything went into effect, we were kind of able to just be nimble and keep things moving and offer our customers a solution into Canada that keeps things moving. So that, for our EPAC Plus products is a pretty simple, switch with our broad reach partners up in Canada to keep those things moving by going around Canada Post. And they kind of have averted that entire strike by just using a different vendor network to get those things delivered. So there are some things that we still, unfortunately, it's not a complete solution because if things are being sent into PO boxes into Canada, there's no way to get those things out of the Canada Post. But for the most part, if they are not addressed to PO boxes, then we have a solution that gets those things delivered regardless of how long this strike goes on or how many of these strikes there end up being. We're able to provide a product, I think, that keeps things moving to a level where, especially as we get closer, an inch closer to a holiday season and a peak season here, our customers who utilize that new service can feel comfortable that their material at least is going to keep moving in the meantime. They will need to find a solution that keeps those people employed and keeps mail moving, even if it is at a restricted level for community mailboxes or whatever they end up doing. So in the end, it is going to be an effect that the Canadian citizens have to deal with. From a compliance standpoint, there's really not much that changes. There's no additional burden on customers that choose to switch to this new model. The customs clearance is still done through our broad reach partners and their vendors who handle customs clearance. And no, it's a very easy thing for customers to switch over to. There's no big burden on them to do so. As Mike continues to deal with the customer side of things, he'll have a lot more to talk about how it affects customers individually. But for the most part, I think the product is on its feet and it's stable and it works. So.
Peak season shipping to Canada can be challenging with the Canada Post strike disrupting cross-border shipping. ePack Select provides multiple entry points, volume-based rates, and fast, cost-effective delivery to most Canadian residential addresses. Avoid delays and contact us today.
So for listeners and viewers watching, listening, etc., ePack Plus is an Ascendia service routing. So that is a branded name within our services that we utilize. We use ePack Plus, ePack Select, which you'll hear of ePack Select Canada Direct Access. ePack Plus is our under 2 kilogram or under 4.4 pound tracked product for parcels being sent to several countries throughout the world, including Canada. It is DDU or duties unpaid, delivered duty unpaid product. So it would be a partner, USPS process, Canada Post handoff, and Canada Post delivery. That's why Jason mentioned ePack Plus in terms of what to do if you're using ePack Plus. So I think, Mike, you might be planning on talking a little bit more about that or some of the, de minimis stuff as well. So go ahead. I just wanted to get clarification on that.
Yeah, no, thanks, Nick. So right now, from a DDU standpoint, the great thing about our direct access product is if your product is valued under 40 Canadian, which is roughly around $29 USD, it could still go on that network and it wouldn't get hit for any duties and taxes, any GST or PST, which is a good thing. So you get the speed of the broad reach network for a DDU parcel and won't have to worry about, trying to collect duties and taxes up front and everything along those lines. And then going back to the customer's point of view, I think customers are now starting to prepare themselves that this is going to be a elongated thing. I personally think, and my recommendation is that this will go to the end of Q4 and might dip into Q1 like it did last year. And we still will see, people trying to go DDU. I think the smart thing to do is start processing through DDP and giving those costs and finding solutions, whether it's a duties taxes calculator up front or some of the other solutions out there where you can kind of preset those fees and you can collect them up front. The experience is so much better than a postal product. It's a lot faster. Our clearance process is probably second to none. We get most of our stuff cleared before it even hits the border. And then once it's over, we have some other things that we do too as well to mitigate kind of risks and holdups with some of the parcels. We're more than willing to help. Right now we're onboarding new customers every day. And, hopefully, with this kind of just helps bring us more business too as well.
One thing we've been talking about, it's been probably a year and a half now, is the fact that we need to focus, and the industry is continuing to shift and focus more and more on customer experience. And this is a situation that is paramount for customer experience, right? The reality is there's still 20 calendar days there where, there was no mailer parcels being processed. So everything's either being staged, being held, and then they have to get through that backlog in order to actually move forward on with the DDU side. Mike, do you want to touch on the rotating strikes real quick?
Yeah, so right now it was just announced the other day, I believe it was over the weekend, that they're going to go into like a rotating strike. So they'll be working, but like Nick was kind of mentioning, there's still going to be a backlog from previous, items that have been held. And I'm sure too, as well, competitors and even including ourselves, we've had to hold different parcels, in different areas. And now once we start processing those and then handing those over to the Canadian postal networks, it's going to be challenging. And you're definitely going to see a large increase in transits where, you could see, additional week or two or more where these parcels are still attempting to be delivered. I don't think it's going to be as bad as it was last year around this time when they were totally shut off and, there was nothing to do with those parcels. And, they were still climbing through that even through the month of February. But I still recommend that obviously if you're trying to ship to Canada, whether or not it's DDP, DDU, we have options for you too as well. Like I said, for the DDU option, if you're under 40 Canadian, it can go through our network. And then obviously if you're DDP, we'd love to take your parcel and we'd love to deliver it, within 3 to 5 business days. We're also delivering on Saturdays and Sundays as well. So, we can touch all the corners of Canada and we are delivering all over the place. I think the challenge still will be the PO boxes, like Jason had mentioned, but that's across the board. And all of our competitors are going to face that same adversity there.
Yeah, and Jason, you made a good mention of it too. And something that we did, or you mentioned the Broadreach team. I simply say our Canadian team, right? They did a great job of getting ahead of this and adding on an alternative final mile vendor to really help offset what we were handing off to Canada Post to keep those things going, right? So some of those really extended rural areas, to the far reach places and such, as well as, even things that would be handled locally that was best routed by Canada Post previously are now going with a final mile vendor that's alternative to Canada Post that's still handling it. When we talk about de minimis rules for Canada, it is pretty simple, but I think it's important we just go over it again. So Mike had mentioned 40 Canadian. So any transactional value, so sale value of a good under 40 Canadian, there's no duty or tax owed on that going into Canada. If it's going in for a full clearance into Canada. If it's under 150, you're going to pay the provincial tax of where the product's going to be getting delivered. And then you won't be paying duty if it's over 150 Canadian, which right now, Mike, what do you think? Like 115 US, something like that?
Something around that. Yeah.
Yeah. Then you're going to be paying duty and tax if it's over 150 Canadian. I'd say the better move for most businesses in the direct consumer space is to make sure that packages are getting delivered and not being held. So that's where we want to position ourselves as the resource with the network to be able to help you achieve that. And of course, you can always contact through any of the outlets related to this podcast. And Mike or Jason, do you guys have anything else you want to add on this situation?
The only other thing I would add is that obviously it's a fluid situation, and any day these situations can come to an end. They can change. They could get worse or better depending on what happens that day. But I think the important thing is that we, in terms of, like you said, our team up in Canada has learned from the first strike and learned what worked and learned what ended up being maybe better than the old way, right, as a result of the changes we had to make. So This is not just hey, there's a new strike, let's turn this thing on and off. There are actual lessons and changes that we've made to our standard baseline on what we do because of the lessons that we've learned on what worked really well during the strike. So yeah, it's a fluid situation, but at least we're in pretty good hands for now.
And just to kind of add on to that too as well, if tax mitigation is what you're looking for too as well, we have, different strategies and different things that we can kind of talk to you about too as well, if that's kind of what's stopping you from moving into a fully optimized DDP network right now.
That's huge. Okay. Thanks so much for taking time out of your day, guys. I know this was a little impromptu, and hopefully viewers and listeners, you guys were able to pull some nuggets out of this. And thank you again for watching Outside the Box with Ascendia USA podcast, special Canada episode, and more coming soon.
Share, subscribe, and download our podcast. To learn more about today's topic or for a free consultation, email us at ecommerce.usa@ascendia.com. Come back for more insightful discussions on e-commerce shipping to Canada, Mexico, and worldwide.